Hey guys, it's Frederik from the FWX podcast. I've been talking about Star Wars in the past couple of videos, specifically about Andor season 1 and 2, and I want to talk right now to what those two seasons lead to. And that is the Rogue One movie, and here's a great poster of them, of the cast of and by the way, the reason why it's called Rogue One is because this is the group that goes to find the plans to the Death Star, to find the missing link that the rebellion really needs to go and destroy the Death Star. And these folks are sent to go and retrieve the plans and give it through the high command of the Rebel Alliance. And so these are all the people on the crew of the ship and the like a task force or like a rebel group called Rogue One. Because as I've now shown, and I haven't mentioned yet that the Rebel Alliance at this point has become a lot bigger, and they have these troops which are based in starships mostly, and they all have a code name. And so Rogue One is the name for the group that goes to get the plans of the Death Star. And so I'm gonna tell you about the story of Rogue One based on the pictures I have. I have pictures of the cast and the characters, and I'm gonna tell you more about that. But first, I need to give you the disclaimer that I definitely will be flubbing some words. I will have some weird pauses on occasion because I need to look things up and my text is on my screen. And occasionally I might or might not swear. Okay, so let's start off. Also, when I'm reading off the screen, I myself will get a little bit brighter because of it, and the screen will also too. So that reflects. Okay, let's start this. And here we go. So we start Rogue One with the Empire going to a planet called Lamu, where we find Orson Krennic, and I have him in this picture right here. This is Orson Krennic, played by the amazing Ben Mendelsohn, who we've already seen in Andor. He's the director of the Advanced Weapons Research part of the ISB, and he is there to find a research scientist called Galen Erso, and you might know that name again if you've seen Andor season 2, where there was literally an episode called Jedha Kyber Erso. And so Galen Erso is this research scientist who is hiding on the planet Lamu. And I also have to mention here that Galen is played by a very well-known actor who, unfortunately, I do not have a photo of right now, but he's being played by Mads Mikkelsen, who, interestingly, has a brother who also with a huge role in Star Wars in another part that I haven't covered, and that is so maybe I'll also do that. But right now we're talking about Rogue One. Okay, so Orson Krennic is there with his troops, the Imperial forces, to get him to help complete the Death Star. And the Death Star is this huge, round, well, a sphere basically, that is capable of destroying planets. Well, not yet. And that's why Orson Krennic is there, to recruit Galen to the cause and finally finish this huge planet looking like weapon. And Galen is not very willing to do this. And he's tasked his wife, Lyra, and his daughter, Jin, to get away as fast as they can. And however, Galen is confronted by Orson Krennic, and he has a standoff, and his wife Lyra, who loves him dearly, who loves their daughter dearly, just can't stand to just go away, and she's just watching Galen talking with Orson Krennic, and she can handle it. And she comes forward and tries to state what they want, that they just want to live together. But unfortunately, she is killed in this confrontation, and their daughter, Jin Urso, sees this one even farther away because she got away just a bit faster, and she escapes to a different part of the planet, and there she is found by someone on the Rebel Alliance, or rather someone that will be part of the Rebel Alliance, and I'm talking here about Saw Gerrera, played by the amazing Forrest Whitaker. And he's an extremist who is very isolationist at the same time too. And so actually that part that I just said is very much a prologue of what is happening. Because now we have a time jump of 15 years where we find ourselves on the moon Jeddah, which is a planet where the Jedi culture has a high culture and secrecy too, and is very important to the Jedi culture. That's what I'm trying to say here. And so 15 years later now we found somebody else on Jeddah, and that is this guy. That is Bodhi Rook, a cargo pilot that has defected from the Empire. He's being played in this movie by Riz Ahmed. And he has he has a message from Galen Erso to Saw Gerrera. And Saw Gerrera takes this guy in. And we cut back to Yavin 4, where our guy, Cassian Andor, there's a good picture of him right here. He has learned of the Death Star in the 2 seasons of Andor that we have seen. And he has also learned of Bodhi's defection from someone that he knows on another planet, of the planet of Kefrine. Meanwhile, we pick up with the little girl from 15 years ago, Jin Urso, who in this movie has grown up and is being played by Felicity Jones. And she has just been freed on an Imperial labor camp on the planet of Wobani. And she's brought to the big rebel base on Yavin 4, the very jungle-like planet with big temples where the Alliance is using it as a base. And she gets to meet someone we got to know during Andor. I got a picture of her. I got a picture of the actress that I've talked about before in Andor, Genevieve O'Reilly, who plays Mon Mothma. And the former senator, now rebel leader, convinces her to find her father, because there are suspicions that maybe he is still alive after 15 years of working on the Death Star, because he was forced to work on the Death Star even after his wife got killed in that confrontation 15 years ago. And Cassian goes with her. He's been, well, actually, he is almost forced to help her. But he also has this new command from one of the other higher ups, General Draven, with not just the idea of extracting Galen Urso, but if things go awry, to actually kill him if necessary. Okay, and then they're joined by somebody else, and that is this character right here, K2SO, who is, by the way, voiced by one of the biggest voice actors there is, like this man right here, Alan Tudyk. Okay, and so Cassian, Jin, and K2SO, they go to Jeddah, where, as I've said before, it is a huge deal for the Jedi, but also to the Empire, as Jeddah contains kyber crystals, and kyber crystals are the little things that the Jedi used to power their lightsabers with. Yes, but these things are highly usable for other things too, including ammunition for the Death Star. And so they are mining as much kyber crystals as they can there. And Jeddah is this very desert-like planet, and Jeddah City is on a huge piece of rock where it's almost like a mountain, basically. A city on a mountain in a desertous place. And so Saw Gerrera is there with his partisan. That's the name of his group, the Partisans. They are fully engaged in combat with the Empire. And so the three of them, Jin and Cassian, gonna show them again, our two leads here. They are in Jeddah City trying to get to Saw Gerrera himself, and they get caught in the crossfire, and they show off their skills in just how good they are, with Cassian being a former rebel spy, or actually leader at this point, because we had a time jump especially when it comes to Jyn Erso. But at this point, we're just after what has happened in the 2 seasons of Andor. But at this point, Cassian has had a bit of a promotion, as he's a captain of Imperial. I'm sorry, I can rephrase. I said that wrong. Cassian at this point is one of the leaders of the Alliance intelligence. So the people gathering information from other places to know what is happening in the galaxy. Okay. And in this engagement that they're in with the Imperial forces, they are aided by 2 new friends that they meet. I have them in the bigger picture, but here's in this picture you can see them even better. Like this man, Chirrut Imwe, played by Donnie Yen in this movie, and his buddy Baze Malbus, who is played by, I'm gonna have to look this up for a moment, and I hope I say this right, Jian Wen in this movie. And so they help out, they show off their skills, and Chirrut Imwe believes in the Force, and he uses it as a guide, and he shows off his skills with what looks like a bow staff being a long non-penetrative and I do mean like not a spear, but like a very capable stick, basically. And he shows off that he can actually fight, despite being blind, by the way. And his good friend Baze Mulbus is way more gifted with heavy weaponry, and he has this loaded up, let's go with machine laser rifle that he has. And so they're in this engagement. There's a nice big action scene, and they're all they get together, and they're brought to Saw Gerrera. And Saw Gerrera, in the meantime, has been holding on to Bodhi Rook, who he has basically been polygraphing him with not a machine, but like a kind of animal, a kind of creature on the planet that they use to make sure if someone is not lying. And so they all engage. Cassian is put with the two guys in a cell, while Saw Gerrera is showing Jyn Erso the message that her father has for her, and he reveals in the hologram, because it's shown in a hologram, that there happens to be a vulnerability that he built into the Death Star, especially when it comes to the energy that is made from the kyber crystals. That has a vulnerability there, and the information that they need to have specifically is on a planet called Scarif. That's what her father also tells, in an Imperial data vault. And so that leads all of them on their way to the Death Star and to Scarif. And so, in the meantime, the Imperial forces are concentrated on the Death Star, and we find our guy Orson Krennic, the director of the Advanced Weapons Research of the ISB, there, and he orders a test to see just how powerful the Death Star can really be. And he tasks his group with destroying Jeddah City and its population. And we see that happen. We have this crazy shot of the city being destroyed and all the planet, or what really looks like the planet, just turning on itself. The desert just going after everyone. And so the group of Rogue One, which is not Rogue One yet, gets to leave, all except Saw Gerrera, who wants to stay behind because he has had this dream of going down with the ship, but not without a fight. And so everyone leaves there, all except for him, and he sacrifices himself, giving them time to get away on their starship. And we cut back to the Death Star, where another well-known figure that I don't have a picture of here, or maybe I do. No. There's this known figure in Star Wars called Grand Moff Tarkin, who, by the way, in this movie is shown through a digitalized version of him. It's not the actual actor that portrays him in this movie. Well, they are using his likeness. And so this guy congratulates Orson Krennic for using the capability of the Death Star to destroy things. And he now also uses in that moment the defection of Bodhi Rook as his way of having authority of the Death Star. And so he takes full control of the weapon. And we go a bit further with Bodhi Rook again. This guy played by Riz Ahmed in this movie. And so Bodhi takes the group to a planet of Adu, or Eadu, which has an Imperial research facility where they're all gathered, the Imperial forces, and here's where Cassian goes out with Bodhi to go look for Galen Erso and either save him or kill him in case he needs to. But then there's a bit of miscommunications happening among the Rebel Alliance, and the Rebels send their starship bombers to go and attack the facility. And Jin also sees her father through the kind of Imperial kind of binoculars that she's using to find him from far away. And she manages to get to the plateau right after the rebel starships have just bombed the place. And she's trying to get him up, but unfortunately he dies while the group is whisked away. They are taking themselves away in the Imperial cargo shuttle that they have stolen from before. And so that leads us to another moment that is iconic because of the character that is right there. And I do somehow have a picture here of that person. And so, as a person responsible for what is happening, Orson Krennic is sent to Mustafar, which is a lava-like planet. And he gets to meet the big bad enforcer of the Empire. This guy that you can see in the background, Mr. or rather, Lord Darth Vader. And he needs to be held accountable and responsible for the actions and for the attack on Jeddah City. And so he wants to have a conversation with the Emperor, and he basically forces Darth Vader to let him have his audience with the Emperor. But Darth Vader, being a badass, just decides that no, you're not gonna do that. And he says this with few words, and he chokes him and orders him to cause no more problems for the Empire, because you're just screwing it up again and again. And that's where we continue the story. And on the stolen ship that they have, Jin proposes that they steal the plans of the Death Star. With plans, I mean the papers, the literal schematics of the thing. And they're in communication at that point with the Rebel Alliance Council, the higher-ups, the Inner Circle, and they really feel like there is no way of winning this fight. And they are at an impasse at this point. And so they head back to Yavin they have their kind of out for a moment. And so a smaller group of volunteers is what Jin comes to rely on. And as they're going out and are crossing into Scarif, the planet they're going to have this the plans and the papers of the Death Star. And as they're going into the planet and into the place where they need to be. They have the advantage of being identified as an Imperial ship because they have stolen it. And here's where the name of the movie comes in order, as Bodhi Rook, played by Riz Ahmed. Our guy here finally dubs the group Rogue One. And using that cover, they go to Scarif, they come there, and they get the land. They have the plan all cut out for everyone that is there, not just the group themselves of the people. And I'm gonna show the photo again. So it's all of these that are on the ship, plus a couple extra people that we have come to know from Andor Season 2, including Cassian's friend Melshi, who was also there with a couple of volunteers. And so we cut to their infiltration of this building. And that is where we see the peak. Well, actually, a literal peak. This is a building with a large part that sticks out to the sky. And so Cassian and Jin get into the building in the uniforms that they have found on the ship, while our guy K2SO is also with them to provide support and make it look more realistic for the Imperial forces. I'm gonna pick up what I just dropped for a moment. Okay. And so they're infiltrating the place while everyone starts to know what is happening, basically. And so the Rebel Alliance sends their fleet of starships to prevent the crew that is there on Scarif from being annihilated. And they get into a space battle with those troops of the Empire that are there. And then we start to see the crew doing the last possible thing that they can do, and that is sacrificing themselves for the greater good. And we see K2SO starting with that, so that Jin and Cassian can get to the place at the peak of this building, because this peak also has like a huge there's a name for this type of thing, kind of a broadcast thing that is at the top of this building, and they need to get to that point. And so everyone that we know from the crew gets killed at this point. So K2SO sacrifices himself so that Jin and Cassian can get the information. We see Chirrut being killed after he has just activated the communication switch with the rebel fleet, and his buddy Baze is not too long after that also killed. And then we see, unfortunately, our guy Bodhi, you see in this picture right here, is also killed. As he has just informed the rebel fleet that they need to deactivate the shield that is around the planet before the transmission of the plans of the Death Star can be transmitted. And one of the rebel leaders that is there is Admiral Radis. He's one of the more alien-looking like leaders, and he uses his own ship to destroy 2 Star Destroyers, which then also destroys the shield generator. And then we have a confrontation between Jin and Cassian as they are being ambushed by Krennic. And Cassian in this moment is able to shoot Krennic. And Jin gets the information that they have right before the Death Star arrives above Scarif. And she finally gets it to the right place, to the Rebel Alliance, to their command ship, as it is being commanded by Grand Moff Tarkin. And he then orders the complete annihilation of this planet and everyone on it, and that includes Director Krennic and Cassian and Jin. And this is an amazing moment in his movie where everything just starts to become lighted up, basically, because of the energy surge that is coming from the Death Star. And Jin and Cassian have their last moments, and they're glad that while they are sacrificing themselves right now, they have finally done the impossible and have given the Rebel Alliance a shot to win this war. And they die in the process. And so the fleet of the rebels that is there is about to do their hyperspace, which, by the way, for those who do not know, is like a warp kind of moment where they can shot to a part of the galaxy far away. But then they are being pursued by the Grand Enforcer of the Empire, Darth Vader. And this is an amazing moment, despite being terrible for the Rebel Alliance. But for us as the viewers, this is beautiful when Darth Vader boards one of those ships. And the rebel troops are trying their best to hold him back, and we see the complete darkness turn to red as he activates his red saber, and he goes to town on these troops of the Rebel Alliance as he is trying to get the schematics back. But the troops that are on the ship, in a sort of hall fight basically, where Darth Vader shows off the skills that he has learned as a former Jedi, but now he's just a merciless menace, and he slaughters them. So a smaller ship that has the schematics gets away while he is delayed by the troops of the Alliance that make sure that the schematics can get away. And the end scene of this movie is, basically the person that Darth Vader didn't know about, his daughter, Princess Leia Organa, who finally has gotten the schematics in her hands. And she declares that this will bring hope for the rebellion. And that is where this movie ends. So I want to say right now that I saw it recently to have this episode, and it is an amazing movie. It is, I have to say, from years ago, from 2016, and we see the culmination of the 2 seasons of Andor and the movie of Rogue One, that being this one and these 2. And so we get the full culmination of the battle of Scarif and the weak link that the Rebel Alliance needed to start and defuse the Death Star and the Empire. And with defuse, I mean really take out, eliminate the Death Star, and all of that you can see, of course, in the Skywalker saga, I will say, because it's. I remember now that originally they were also released by the Free. Basically, you have the prequels that were made in the 2000s. You have the we'll call it the original trilogy with Han Solo and Leia Organa and Luke Skywalker. That was made all the way back in the 70s. If I'm right. And then more closer to us right now in the 2010s, where they made the sequel. And so these events impact all of that. They impact the entire Skywalker saga, as we see almost like a cheap knockoff happening in the sequel, where similar stuff happens. So that's everything about Andor and Rogue One. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the FWX podcast, and I hope to see you in our next video, which will definitely be about something else, of course. But thank you so much for sticking with me and hearing me out about this amazing show of Andor and the movie of Rogue One. So, by the way, if you're still with me right here, you can like and subscribe if you want. You can also leave a comment if you like. And I hope to see you in the next video. So, thank you very much for listening. See you in the next video.